Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks interesting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. And also one more thing before we get into the video, if you enjoy what I do here, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. It really helps me out and lets me know you enjoy the video. But with all that out of the way, let's get into that video.
Okay, so to paint up Lord Varys here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by painting his skin, and I'm going to be using a neutral flesh tone for this. So this is just going to be a nice simple base coat, and this is of course to establish the base tone of our flesh. And since Lord Varys is a bald man who spends a lot of time inside and court, I want to make him a little bit lighter skin, make him maybe just a little bit paler, but we're going to be doing those in the next step. But starting off with a neutral flesh tone is going to be great for that. And of course, he only has a couple of areas exposed, and that is his face and his hand, so nice and easy to give it a good coverage there. Then now we have that completely dry, we're going to come in now with our next flesh tone, and this is going to be Fairy Flesh, which is a lot lighter tone. It's even a slightly different color, and I think it's going to be great for using for the highlights. So of course we will be aiming for the upper areas, a place like this. Now, since Lord Varys is bald, we want to be aiming for the top of the head as well, giving a good coverage. So what I'm going to be doing here is, once I'm picking out his nose and his cheeks and areas like that, I'm going to be also picking out his forehead, but I'm also going to be taking that all the way around to the back of his head on the very top, because I want it to make it hopefully give off the effect like the sun is shining from the top of his head and giving it a little bit of a shine. So I want to be a little bit more than I would usually do for a highlight on the head there, so just making sure that gets a nice good coverage, sort of drawing like a sort of rough hairline on the top of his head with that color, so we've got a nice difference in the color of his skin tone, and we've got that little bit of lighter color for the shine coming off of the sun that's reflecting off his head. Then once we have that all done, what I'm going to do to tie it all together is I'm going to come in with a flesh wash here. Now for me, I'm going to be using a Brightcon flesh shade, but any flesh wash will do. Give it that sort of nice reddish tint, give it that sort of skin look, that warmth that we want in the skin. So I've done it with the highlights first, and then going over with a wash over top, because I want it to sort of blend in a little bit. That's hopefully what I'm trying to do, because I think it would look a little bit too stark in contrast and color if I was to just leave the highlight as it was as the top layer. So I wanted to just blend that in just a little bit, and way to cheat a little bit of blending rather than spending a long time sort of thinning out the paint and building it up, is to put a wash over top of it to let that wash sort of blend the two colors together, and you'll still get that natural highlight in there as well. So just one little trick you can use there to try and make blending a little bit easier on yourself. Now that we have his skin done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with his clothes. Now I'm going to be starting off with his underclothes. This is the under layer that you can see here. I'm going to be using Avalon Sunset for this. I'm going to be giving him sort of a yellow and purplish sort of scheme. Lord Varys wears a lot of really fancy and nice colored silks and things there, so it can be really up to you what color you want to do him here. There's so many options and potential here, and I'm going with sort of what he wears in the book. He's described as wearing purples and yellows when you first meet him in the book, so I'm going for something like that. I'm not going for exactly what they describe in the book, but I'm going for something sort of similar, sort of just giving that hint of what was in the books to inform my sort of color painting decisions here, because it really is an endless amount of options. You could go with nice awesome silk robes, try to copy from the Game of Thrones TV show, of course. There's so many options here, which is one great thing with this. But for me, I'm going to go with the yellow for the underlayer, and of course making that top overcoat its own separate color. Then once we have those areas painted in, I want to come now with a yellow wash, and this is just to sort of enrich the color a little bit more, just give it that slightly different tone, because I want to come back in with our Avalon Sunset to do the highlight as well, because a lot of my yellows are sort of a bit too bright to be highlights. So if I darken it down and just enrich the color and warm it up with a yellow wash, I can then use the color again to come back in and use it as a highlight, so you have some difference in the color there, rather than me coming in with a really bright shining yellow. It wasn't the sort of look I want to go for. I want to keep it this sort of more muted mustardy color, this more deeper sort of yellow, rather than a very, very bright in your eyes yellow. Then once we have that complete, what we're going to do is come back in with our Avalon Sunset, like I said, and we're going to use this as the highlight, and this is going to give us a bit more of a subtle highlight. There is a little bit of a difference there. You can see it probably a little bit hard to see on camera, but it gives that nice contrast with having that wash on there that's sort of warmed everything up and turned it to more of sort of like a mustard warm yellow. And then coming back in with our Avalon Sunset is just giving that base color, but it works great as a highlight and making it more of a subtle highlight, because I want it to be more of a subtle highlight, like I was saying. Because if I want to go for a bright in your face highlight, I would have gone with one of my other yellows, which would have been just straight yellow. Now you could totally do this, of course, but for me I just wanted to make that a little bit more subtle, so coming back in with the original color is what I'm doing here. So now we have his underclothes done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on that sort of overcoat / clothing he has on him, and I'm going to be doing a purple for this. Now this here is a royal purple. This is sort of a mix between a purple and a blue, and I think it's a great color to go with here. Now, like I said, I'm going with the sort of more book description of him, and the first time you sort of see him as the colors I'm going with here, and it describes it as purples, but you know, there's an endless amount of purples you can use here, and I was just really feeling the sort of royal purple because, you know, he's on the council, you know, he has a lot of influence. He's the spider, of course, so he has a lot of influence, and he likes to dress himself in finery and stuff like that. So I think the royal purple was the choice for me here for this, and to really move on with the theme that I'm trying to go for here. So what we're doing is we're giving him a nice good overall base coat of everywhere where he has his overshirt, but I'm going to be avoiding areas around the collar and down the sort of seam of the top of the cloak that he has over top of him. I want to make that a different color entirely. Then once again I'm going to come back in with a wash. This time it's going to be Druchii Violet or a purple wash, and I want to do this to sort of deepen it down and enrich that purple color. Also turn the royal purple from a bluey purple to a bit more of the purple side, so that way when I do the highlights, I'm going to be going, of course, over the highlights again with the same color. It'll be that more bluey look onto the highlights, but the clothing itself, the base color of the clothing, will be that more purple look. So just give us a little bit of contrast in there. So that's the idea I'm trying to go for. We'll see if it turns out, of course, but it's going to hopefully help add in just that little bit of difference when you're looking at it in terms of the highlights on the piece. Okay, so now we have that wash completely dry. We're going to come back in with our royal purple now, and we're going to use this for the highlights. Now, this is probably a little bit harder to see even more than the yellow, but having it in person, and hopefully when we get to those final glamour shots, you'll be able to see a little bit more what I'm trying to go for here with the piece by making the highlights that very bluish purple, but having our base color of the actual clothing in a more purple tone by having that purple wash added on there. That's what I'm trying to do here, and of course this model has some nicely sculpted wrinkles and folds and some natural high points on the piece, so it's just a matter of going around and picking those out. Then once we have those highlights complete, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with some ivory, and this is an off-white, a very near white, but what we're painting on here, it'll pretty much look like pure white. And this is the area that I'm going to be doing the trim of the over clothing. So I'm going to be doing the nice seam down the middle there, the very edge of the cloak or overclothes that he's wearing there as well, and of course around that collar that we saved from before. I'm giving them a nice good coverage in the white, so I'll take a few layers because the purple underneath is a little bit dark, so I'm going to take a couple of layers to build up. But I want to do this to show off that, you know, he has wealth, power and influence, and he can afford to keep his clothing in nice pristine condition, and those nice little white bits on the end don't get dirty because he spends his time sort of looking after himself, and he's always in court and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm trying to go for here. Plus it also gives a nice pop of color over the entirety of the piece as well. So just being very careful, making sure that we have good brush control over the piece as we're picking out these little bits and edges. So then once we have that complete, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some matte black now, and this is actually going to be for the trims on his sleeves. I was really tossing and turning of what I wanted to be for the colour of the sleeves here. I was wondering if I should go for white or a completely different colour there, but I just settled on nice plain old black. I think it's going to stick out really good against that yellow we have on there, as well as the purple, and also make those areas really distinct. Now you could of course even go for like a metallic color here, make it like it's golden weaved or something like that. That was one option I was considering, but no, I just wanted to keep it a little bit more simple, and I thought maybe if I was putting on the gold sleeves there, it would feel way too metallic rather than go for like a golden thread. So I decided to go with black there and try and make it really pop out against the yellow that we have there, so it really stands out, so you can see those nice little patterns he has on his sleeves. Then once we have that complete, there's one more area left, and that is the nice rope that he has around his waist to keep his clothing all together. Now there's a variety of options you can do here as well. You could even go with the black for this as well if you want to keep it nice and simple, but I wanted to stand out a little bit more, so I've gone with a brown for this. Specifically I've gone with burnt umber, but you could really lighten it up, go with a very light color, which I think would maybe even separate it out a little bit more, but I want to go with a nice sort of rich brown, something that wasn't too eye-catching, but also separated the parts out nice and evenly. And I think the burnt umber here, Rhine Oxide would probably be another really good color for here as well. That nice deep dark brown really helps let it also feel like it's a nice elegant piece of rope that he's wearing. And with all that complete, we have finally finished painting up Lord Varys from the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. So I hope this video has been helpful for you, whether you want to follow along with what I did here, or you just want to use this video as some inspiration in painting up your own miniatures. So with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.